Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Amy Rifat. I am a private sector specialist with IFC's employability program, Vitae, and I will be moderating this session. Today, we have an exciting topic for you, attracting international students to build an international culture. Now, the world is more interdependent than ever, and the ability to navigate a culturally diverse workplace is increasing as an increasingly important skill. For universities, an international student body is an excellent way to develop culturally aware students and to prepare them for a global labor market. Now, the internationalization of an education institution includes different factors such as the mobility of students, mobility of staff, and the internationalization of curricula. But for the purposes of this webinar, we are going to be focused on the mobility of students, i.e. attracting students from abroad to your institution. The question is, how do education institutions attract students from abroad? What kind of infrastructure needs to be put in place? And importantly, how to ensure that ensure the recognition of credentials so that when graduates go back home, they can secure jobs in their home country. So in this webinar, we will be exploring these topics and discussing practical steps for you to take at your institution. We have a great panel of speakers representing different parts of the globe. I am delighted to introduce them. We have Donald Chungo. Hello, Donald. He's the Director Quality Assurance at Cavendish University, Zambia. Previously, he was the Director of Distance Education and Open Learning at Copbelt University. We have Malik Alkan. Hello, Malik, is the head of the International Relations Office at the International Black Sea University in Georgia, where he also teaches international relations. And we have Delila Sohinek, our own senior education specialist. She's part of the Vitae team, and she has more than 20 years of experience in the international education space in over 30 countries. Delila has held administrative leadership positions as a director of several departments at Berkeley College, New York, Fairleigh Dickinson University, Seneca College, and York University, all in Canada. So welcome, Delila. I am sure you, the audience, are going to have questions for our panelists. So we have dedicated a Q&A session during the second half of our webinar. I encourage you to put your questions in the Q&A box or the chat box, whichever one suits you, at the bottom. You'll find the icons at the bottom of your screen. So let's dive right in it. I'd like to start with you, Delila. Could you tell us, in your experience, how do students make this decision to study abroad? What criteria are they using?
Now, I want to, thanks, Amy, for the question, but I thought we should probably just mention that we are talking about one tiny piece of internationalization today. So in general, when we talk about internationalization, it's much broader. So we talk about mobility of students, we talk about mobility of faculty. We also talk about internationalization of the curriculum, which may mean accreditation, recognition process, dual credentials, joint programs, co-curricular, extracurricular, international activities, and so on and so forth. So for the purposes of today's webinar, we're focusing on mobility of students, which again can be both outbound and inbound, but today we're talking about inbound mobility of international students and how to attract them to our campuses. So with that in mind, how do students and their parents make this decision? Typically, in my experience, I've seen 8 to 10 reasons, and I like to rank them. They start with identifying or realizing that there may be a lack of access to quality education at home. Not that quality education is not available, but there's just not enough space. They consider portability of a degree, whether a degree from a particular country is portable and they can practice in the field internationally or back home. And then there's other reasons as well: safety, stability, family ties, personal reasons, ability to settle in another country. So that's where they sort of start. They also consider then what language of instruction. Am I studying in English or French, Russian, Mandarin, and so on and so forth? What is familiar to the student? The cost, of course, tuition, living expenses. And then, again, ranked. They think about ability to work while studying or ability to work post-graduation, settle, location, whether it is rural or urban. So those are some of the reasons that I've heard in my experience that parents and students discuss. And then when we take a look at some studies that have looked into reasons, they have, depending on the market and on the country, these 10 change places. For in some countries, it's ability to settle as a reason number 1, and cost and tuition is reason number 2, and so on and so forth. But it's usually these 10.
Okay, thanks for that. And we will delve a little deeper into that. But on another important topic, what do international students usually study? What do they go abroad to study?
I'm assuming this is for me as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Okay. So again, typically, I mean, we're looking at the 2020 data. It's 2022. It changes, but it's usually between business and STEM, depending on whether undergrad or grad. So at the undergrad level, they tend to go into business, but it will also depend on the country. So for example, students going to the US tend to go into STEM, versus Canada and Australia, they tend to go to business as a preference. But it's these two fields that dominate choices for students, and it will depend on graduate and undergraduate as well.
Right. Okay, let's move to Eastern Europe and hear about the International Black Sea University, how you're attracting foreign students. Melik, could you first tell us, where are the international students from that come to your university? Which countries?
Amy, thank you very much. Indeed, we are attracting students from 35 countries. And that is contributing our internationalization, sort of the international education. And we do have students from, I will say, Central Asia, like from Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and from Azerbaijan, South Caucasus, which is from Armenia. And then we move to the Turkey. We do have from Turkey, and then from also from Malawi to, I will say, from Canada. And we have 2 students from United States. So it's a different, and because of the region that offers many opportunities, and maybe I think it will be next question, why they choose us. So as Dalila mentioned, that is instruction language, which is International Black Sea University offer international programs sort of in English since 1995. And the tuition, and also the Tbilisi is one of the safest cities in the Europe, actually, with a low crime index. And then the nature of the country and the collectivist idea of the public, they will help the international students if they have any problems. So those with the countries that I just mentioned, and also several reasons why they would choose Georgia, and specifically International Black Sea University to study.
Thank you, Melik, for that. So mostly from the region, but also from outside of the region, clearly.
Yes,
and
definitely.
And the ease of coming to Georgia. Have you noticed that it's also any reason related to them wanting this international culture, proficiency in English? Is that one of the reasons as well why they come?
Yeah, definitely, which is as an office, we look at the data and indexes day by day. We, of course, we do the survey to ask the students why they have chosen us. And first of all, the International Black Sea University is one of the leading private university in Georgia with teaching English as a medium as a language, instruction of the language. And the second one, I think, is Tbilisi is turning into a international student hub, offering culture, offering a lower tuition fee that can, for example, accommodating to the incoming students coming from the different part of the region. Even in Africa, I didn't mention the Africa, we do have students from different part of the countries in Africa. And I think the crucial point will be that the Tbilisi, also Georgia, has a European identity. Students coming from those region, they want to like a taste the European way of education and culture, society, and also the people, the day to day to connecting with the local people. So those will be the internal and also external reason. Like I will say, I will call it like a push and pull factors. So the pull factor will be definitely attracting as a country regional statue, and education as International Black Sea University offering the top international, which is EAU, is European educational scope with that.
Okay, thank you. And what kind of infrastructure, Malik, do you have in place to attract the international students?
Our university is pretty old. I mean, 30 years old. The infrastructure today, I think after pandemic, I'd like to mention that Emmy, after pandemic, students feel to be at the campus than ever in the history of their education. I would say that because they wanted to reconnect to the people, they wanted to reconnect with the infrastructure, they wanted to reconnect with the facilities. Our university with top management have a vision to use every inch of every square feet of the facilities to offer to students. Sort of, for example, I will not go over each of the facilities that we offering to students, but the main topic on my list is we offer the sports, which is we believe that they needed the sports, and the culture, which is we offer the international students and also local students to offer a sort of their local culture and also their country culture. So the university opened the facilities to those areas. It's called sort of the tangible intangibility, what we offer to the students. And then the university is highly digitalized, and then students find accessibility to those area of education. That's also considered as facility as well. And the students also feel themselves, if they have an idea, they can directly open the club, which is represent their idea, their, for example, support their soft skills. And I'm proud to say, I'm proud of the International Black Sea University to say that we do have around like a 37 international clubs. And then we recently come up with the International Student Integration Club, that they can use the facilities to represent to their culture. So bottom line, I would say that university offering in terms of the culture, supportive, educational, culture purposes, infrastructure to the international students and also local students as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Malik. So yes,
welcome.
facilities, important facilities, and giving them a way to express their culture and access the culture. Thank you. That's
Exactly.
very helpful. Okay, let's move to Africa and hear about Cavendish University from Donald. First of all, Donald, could you tell us what percentage of international students you have at Cavendish, both at Zambia and Uganda, because I know you have 2 branches, and where they are mainly from? Again, regional, where are they from?
Right, thank you. Our international students make up a percentage that oscillates between 7 to 10%. That's for the Cavendish University, Zambia. But our sister university in Uganda, they've got a larger proportion of international students, close to 40%, make up that population. So the majority of the students, of these international students, they come from the region. And for Cavendish University, Zambia, they come from Malawi, Botswana, Namibia, South Africa, Zimbabwe. Basically, within the region, we attract these international students from the region. And even our sister university in Uganda, the majority of the international students, they come from within the region. So we could see that Cavendish University Zambia as well as Uganda really attract the international students from the region.
Okay, so regional again, thank you. And what do they mostly study, Donald? I know you have a number of schools.
Right, the majority of them, they come to study medicine. So we have a large proportion of international students that want to study medicine. And the other students, like Delilah has mentioned, they prefer business studies as well as law. But if I was to rank which one is a priority, we've got School of Medicine, that's they come to study medicine, and then followed by law, as well as business education.
Okay, that's an interesting point that I want to come back to, because the fact that a lot of your international students are studying for professions that are highly regulated, which is maybe out of the norm. So I'll come back to that. But before we do go into that, could you tell us, again, in your experience, how students and parents make a decision to study abroad, and what infrastructure needs to be in place? What infrastructure have you got in place at Cavendish to attract them?
Right. The first thing that they look at are the facilities. What facilities are available for them to complete their studies, for them to have a conducive environment in terms of pursuing their studies. And what we've seen is that, especially the medical students, we as Cavendish University Zambia, we have one of the best laboratories in the country. So that attracts a lot of students to come and study medicine, because laboratories are top notch. The other thing that they consider includes issues of accommodation. For example, are they going to find accommodation once they enroll into the program? And what we've seen is that if accommodation is available, information about accommodation, then international students are more likely to come. For example, as Cavendish, what we do is that we've agreed with landlords around the campus to provide accommodation to the students. So in that way, we negotiate the rates on their behalf so that they provide us with good rates. And we assure them that, look, even when you come to Cavendish, you are likely to get accommodated, quality accommodation and affordable accommodation. The other issue is on the issue regarding the extracurricular activities. We've seen that students, when they know that it's not only studying that they will be doing, but also they'll be doing some other activities outside the books. So as Cavendish, we have a program where we encourage students to have an international day where students showcase their culture from their own countries in terms of what they eat, what they dress, and that really adds up a very diverse spirit within the community.
So very in line with what Melik was saying. Clearly, students being able to express their culture and get to know others, the facilities and the accommodation one. That's very helpful, Donald. Delilah, is there anything you'd like to add, or are there other things that an education institution can put in place infrastructure-wise to attract international students besides what Donald and Melik have mentioned, which is already quite a long list?
Yeah, well, if there are universities in our audience who have not attracted international students before and are exploring this possibility, then I think we start with infrastructure, just thinking through whether our institution wants international students and why. What do they contribute? And that there's a long list of things that universities and educators that have international students on campus can talk about. And why should we have them? Is it, yes, indeed, it's a revenue stream, of course, but it also helps internationalize the experience of domestic students, internationalize our curriculum, help with those global competencies that we talk about, interpersonal communication, cross-cultural communication, and intercultural competencies. Lots of reasons to attract international students. And once we decide that indeed we want to attract this talent for all these reasons, then are we familiar with our own national laws and regulations when it comes to visas and permits, entry, exit? Can they legally work if we have internships, or in School of Medicine, for example, clinical placements? Can they do that legally? What is the risk? And so on and so forth. Institutional policies. Do we have any that either enable or hinder international students coming on board? Do we recognize international credits, high school graduation? What are our cultural, do we have any cultural support mechanisms, multi-faith, multi-purpose rooms, multi-faith organizations? Do we have simple policies like our finance policy? What happens with the visa, with the tuition fee refund if a student's visa is rejected? So these are just some policies. And then as both Donald and Molly talked about, we talk about actual physical infrastructure. Do we have the facilities? What do they look like? How do they compare globally? Can we compete? And then the student journey experience, which starts from a prospect. How does the student apply? Do they apply online? Can they pay their tuition in a different currency online? Do we have an account set up in, I don't know, US dollar, euro, whatever the students may choose, or we may decide to have to accept tuition fee as? How do we communicate all of this to students? Is our website helpful? What does our admissions process look like? Do we have staff who are trained to look at credentials from abroad? And it's not, difficult training. It's really access to tools that exist online, where our staff can go and check whether a diploma, high school diploma from Georgia is equivalent of a Canadian high school diploma. What is the TOEFL requirement or the IELTS requirement typically? So do we have an academic policy to support it? So those are just on the infrastructure. When you think about infrastructure beyond facilities, what do services look like? Pre-arrival services. Yes, accommodation is one, but do we have anyone picking students up at the airport, giving them that orientation? What does our peer program look, buddy program, to pair an incoming students with a senior student for all these questioning and things that new students may have coming from another country? Do we have health insurance for them? What does that look like? What is our tuition fee? How is it differentiated? How much do they pay? How do we compete? We don't want to be too affordable, but we also don't want to price ourselves out of the market. So once all of that thinking is done, we also look at first year experience. Now that we have them, how do we keep them? There's a culture shock after the honeymoon period. Everybody wants to go home. They don't really like it anymore. In Canada, the winter is too harsh. I want to go home. That food doesn't taste right. So how do we deal with culture shock as an institution? What does it take to retain those students? And yes, indeed, this is where intercultural programs come into place, making sure you celebrate your international students who are on campus, connecting them with their own community if there is one. So lots of thinking to be done. When we talk about infrastructure, there's this pre-arrival, there's the policies, there's the procedures, there's the laws, understanding all of that, and then the facilities and whether we can actually provide services and accommodate students. So there's a long checklist of things.
Right. Okay. So loads of things for our audience to think about here. Yeah. Think about first of the why and how we're going to set up the infrastructure pre-arrival and then how to keep them. That was a very helpful way of thinking about it, Dalila. Thank you for that. I wanted to go back now to the point that Donald made about the subjects most of your international students study, and that's medicine and law, which are not usually the topics, subjects that they study because it's highly regulated, as Delila was saying earlier. So how do you ensure the recognition of credentials so that graduates, once they graduate from your university, can secure jobs in their home country?
Right, thank you. The first thing that we do, we ensure that the programs that we are offering are accredited by the local regulators. Here in Zambia, we have the Higher Education Authority that ensures that before you offer any program, it must be regulated. It must be accredited to make sure that it meets the local standards as well as international standards. And the regulators, they also belong to a regional regulation system where they speak to each other. And in that way, once the program is accredited, then within the region, students would know that when they come to Cavendish, for example, they will pursue a program that is accredited, that is recognized not within the country, but also outside the country. So we pay attention to accreditation to make sure that all the standards that, the standard criteria that have been prescribed in that program are met. This includes what kind of facilities do we need to put in place, what in what form or quality level should they be, what competencies or qualifications should the lecturers have. So we ensure that only qualified lecturers and tutors and professors are recruited to offer these programs to the students. So accreditation, it's a big thing, because obviously no student will pursue a program that they know that they won't be recognized anywhere. So we ensure that our regulators are satisfied with the programs that we are offering.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that explanation. And then I also here wanted to draw upon you again, Delila, and your experience, your international experience. How do institutions elsewhere ensure the recognition of credentials so that graduates can get a job abroad or in their home country when they return?
Yeah, so the portability of degree versus portability of credit. I think institutions that start with portability of credit with just exchange agreements have an easier time of mapping their programs. But again, there's a checklist, and we start with what's doable and work towards what's ideal. So ideally, you would want to have international accreditation for your program. So you have a School of Business, you would want it to be Triple Crown accredited or AACSB accredited, so on and so forth. You also want to make sure that nationally accredited program, so a program accredited by the Ministry of a country, is indeed recognized by as an equivalent program by degree recognition agencies, and there are many. Well, I shouldn't say there are many. There are two that everybody kind of looks up to, and there are those. And then there are portals or websites such as ACRO, and I know I'm going to put this in chat, all these acronyms, where you would go and check whether your institution is listed as a recognized institution in your own country. But 99% of the time, our audience will know whether they are nationally accredited or not. So let's get that off the checklist. That's number one. Number two is now we can, having that knowledge and understanding, we can go ahead and see if we can have a credit transfer program, an exchange agreement, short-term study abroad. So attract international students who are going to come to us and take 15 credits or 60 ETCSs, European credits, and transfer them back to their institution. That simply means that the institution is recognizing our curriculum. because there's a recognition of the credit. So I like to start with things that are achievable and easy for institutions to do. And then, of course, we want to take a look at, now that we're there, can we have a joint program? Can we have a dual program? Can we have a 2+2? Can we have a 1+3, or whatever that means, right? To different countries. So in some countries, they will insist on 2+2, do 2 years with me, finish in country X, where we know there is a perception that there is a recognition and portability of that degree within that region. So those are some of the things that universities, you know, if they're looking at the checklist of things they could do, is do those things in sort of in this order of, let's get some exchanges going, let's get a joint program, let's get some transfer going, and then seek international accreditation eventually for our program.
So yeah, it's a long-term vision.
I mean,
these are
I generally tell, you know, when institutions, when an institution says, well, how do we do this? We are in a you know, small country, and it's not, we have a program that's English speaking. How do we do this? I think you start by building partnerships and relationships with institutions in another country, so that you have some experience dealing with those institutions, and indeed this credibility of credits being recognized, and then work your way up that chain.
And I think you were also talking about how an institution can identify whether its certificate is portable or not. Was that the ACRO you were talking about?
Yeah, so ACRO database is American Association of Admissions and Registrars, college registrars, and that's on it. So in ACRO, we would look up a credential. So I would, since we have Georgia and Zambia, Malik and Donald here, if I was getting a student from Georgia, I would look up what paperwork do I need to receive from that student in order to admit them to a program for which I have established Canadian admission standards. How does it compare? Or American in this case. ACRO is American, but we use it. We use it a lot in Canada. There's another one. So that's credential specific, I mean credit specific and credential specific as it pertains to an individual. Any Canaric will look at ministries, accrediting bodies. So I would go to this database and take a look at an institution, at a ministry that accredits that institution. So some countries will have several ministries accrediting a program, say Minister of Education and Ministry of Health accrediting a particular program. So there are these globally acceptable and access databases. Some are for a fee, like ACRO Edge, and some are not. So that's where I would start. In terms of, is my degree from Zambia, for example, I'm picking a Donald, I think he's addressed Zambia, but is my degree from Egypt portable to South Africa? That will be up to the regulatory body if we're talking about regulated programs. So if I am bringing a student to study law, and it's a common law, and it's the same in a country X, then I would take a look at entry to practice requirements. Can my students take the bar? And if they can, or if they can't, do I have a partner to fill the gap in that country? And then I would take a look at my pass rate for the entry to practice and use that to build the reputation for the program and grow the program or recruitment from that country. So lots of different ways. Again, I mean, we have 1 hour. This is like a long list of things on we could do. So my number one advice really is to institutions that are looking into this is to join communities of practice. There is the largest is NAFSA. Everybody who's in international field has heard of it, has joined at least one interest group, be it recruitment, credentialing, credit transfer, to learn more. There is a European-based agency, somewhat smaller, but still pretty big, for those for whom Europe is closer. Well, for everybody. Europe's closer for everybody. EAIE. So those are the two that you don't necessarily need to go to conferences, but you can join their communities of practice, become a member, and start taking advantage of this collective experience in these questions like how do I transfer a credit from a country I'm not familiar with? What is your experience? Have you done any research to see what kind of retention thing we need to have for students from Asia, Africa? What are the services we're looking to have for students from the Middle East, from South America? Should we have clubs? Are the clubs the way to go, or is it reaching out to heritage communities in the region, or in the city? So those are joint communities of practice as most important advice.
Okay, that's a great piece of advice. And Delina, I'm going to ask you to put the name of the community of practice and the two associations in the chat for our audience. Thank you. And I know this is a difficult one for experts like you and the other speakers to cram in all your knowledge in 1 hour. So I understand. And we need to get to the Q&A because I'm sure that the audience has some questions about this. Let's talk about how an international student body can affect an organization. And Menek, I'd like to come back to you on this one. What benefits are you seeing to your institution by having this diverse international student base?
Emmy, thank you very much. First of all, International Black Sea University is accredited and authorized higher education in Georgia, which is offering 30-degree programs in English, and in 3 cycles: bachelor, master, and PhD in education, computer technology, engineering, and also business management and science. So international students definitely contribute to internationalization of the university. I was one of the international students in United States, and I think taking from myself an example, I contribute to my university, as a sort of intercultural dimension of the university, and how to develop, even with my lectures, because I was coming from the different part of the world, and they kind of like offer me what I need. So it's a demanding and challenging in the sort of the challenging and demanding. And I think we do have challenging today, which is after pandemic, for the international students, how they contribute to the institutions or institution. We evaluate that as through the surveys, and we see that international students, because we're an international university, we have to have international students. First of all, they develop a hub in terms of to developing the curriculum. So our program, School of, for example, Business, School of Computer Science, they will look at into those data, how the international student idea, and how we actually, the question, how would we create some mechanism, involve international students in our curriculum development, our internationalization strategy. And we, as an international Black Sea University, we do. I would like to mention that they contribute to career development of the university. They contribute to internationalization, international education, which is International Black Sea University. I mean, Georgia is a European Union is helping contribute in the Georgia to involve into the EC European credit transfer scheme program, and the international students involved into that practice. And we do also send our international students abroad through the Erasmus and bilateral agreements with the European Union. So they also, when they come back, they contribute with this experience, they contribute to the university. And the international students also contribute to intercultural communications. The students that country that I mentioned, they are not they're not familiar with the Georgian culture. So when they end up here, They contribute to bring their cultural background, and then we helping them to involve and integrate into the cultural level of society. So they also contribute to the society. And I think the most important one will be they bring ideas. They come up with their baggages, and I think they filled up with the very soft skills from here to back to their country. So there are many, of course, to list on that, but I would like to underline that I think the curriculum development and also the education academic background, like lectures, and they also contribute to there. And overall, the education they involve into very wide scope, range of the scope, and they contribute to every field of they are in. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like a lot of benefits. So they bring ideas, there's the
Definitely.
intercultural communication and actually impacting of the curricula, because you need to change the curricula to be in line with that. That's amazing. And one last point on this, how do you see it affecting the employability of your graduates?
We are offering programs in English as an English instructions, and I often see emails that our graduates find job in European countries and companies, which is they wanted to see the credibility if they get a degree from us. So first of all, when they get a degree, they don't have to go through the many departments to find, like for example, in USA they have a WES and ECE, which is they have to find a credential. So in this part of the world, they don't have to. They automatically transfer their credits, their diplomas into the work. And the students who graduated from International Black Sea University don't have to have ICA or IELTS or TOEFL, because they already graduated from the English instruction. So that to contribute to the employability. I mean, we have a 98% of employability rate, and we do have alumni office. So far we have around 5,000 alumni, and we're creating this is another infrastructure, actually another idea, that we connecting with the alumni. We don't leave them alone. So we involve them in many activities. Every year we do have also alumni reunion activities. And most of the students, I would say, when they graduate from International Black Sea, they find a job, because here we do also teach Georgian language to international students, Turkish and Russian. We do have a Spanish and French, and also even we opened the Chinese class as elective courses. So that's high employability, and the computer science, architecture, business became the top programs that students automatically start even working after their second year as a freelancer. This is actually one of the trend, and this is one of the rate that we see from the student body. They wanted to work, they wanted to transfer their soft skill, which is theoretical value, into the practical, and we see that. So I would say not they, after the graduation, they start working, they start to contribute to the local infrastructure, local industrialization. International Black Sea University have 200 mutual agreement with the local companies and the top companies, that the international students can also find job and internship there.
That's wow.
Thank you.
Oh, that's great. So very, very high it is affecting the employability in a very positive way from what we're hearing. That's
Definitely.
Great, Merrick. Yeah. And how about you, Donald? How about your experience at Cavendish? Are you seeing?
Amy, I think we lost you, so I think it's the same question for Donald.
Institutional, given.
Right. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that question. As Cavendish, what we do is that we actually benefit from the international students. One way is where it enhances the faculty members to ensure that they pull up their socks. What that means is that when they know that in their class, they are international students, they are more likely to be to put in more compared to if they are only local students. So the presence of international students will ensure that our faculty members, they enhance, they work harder compared to if they were only local students. The other benefit that we've seen is that it gives credibility when they know that the program, when other students or other candidates know that the program is international students have subscribed to that program, they are more likely to enroll into that program because of the fact that there are international students in there. And when they're international students, there's a perception that the program is more accredited, is more beneficial, not only within the country, but also outside the country. The other benefit is we know that, let's say, when we are applying for funding from external funders, we've seen that one of the criteria that they may use is that how many international students does this program have? So obviously, when you show evidence that the program attracts some international students, you are more likely to convince the funders. So it's a benefit to us in that regard. And the students, they also play a role as ambassadors. When they graduate, they'll go out there and they'll speak highly about the institution. So in that way, they are marketing your program. They are marketing the institution. So there are great benefits when it comes to international students. The other point is the issue of networking. When international students have enrolled into that program, they'll create networks with the local students. And at the end of the day, the networks between international and local students will be enhanced. And even that will contribute positively even when they graduate to issues of employability because they already formed those networks. So even when they go out, they go back to their own countries, they'll be able to remember or connect with the local students from the university where they are coming from. So there are lots of benefits that we've seen as Cavendish-based Zambia.
Thank you, Donald. Thank you for that. Very, very helpful. Okay, I think everybody's definitely sold on the idea of attracting international students. And now it's time for our Q&A. And I can see we've got quite a few questions here. I'm going to start, I'll direct this. I think one of them is, I'll direct it you, Dalila. I think you maybe take a first stab at this. How can we attract students if the city has a high level of delinquency? And I think this would also be linked to a similar question, which is how can I attract students if I'm from a country that's not typically historically on the top list of exchange students, from Brazil, for example? What advice do you have for us?
So they're different questions. So I'll start with the first one, because it's a difficult question. So where I would start on this is understanding what does it mean to be from a city with a high level of delinquency, and how does it compare to cities with a similar crime rate where that are successful in attracting international students. And it's just a different way of saying, if you take a look at the typical destination for international students, and I'm going to pick on Canada and the US and UK, where's the highest crime rate, and do they have international students, so that I can contextualize my own? Is it really much higher? So that's just to understand what it means. Is it a perception, and how real is it in terms of how other people see it? The next thing I would do is I would make sure my students are safe. So parents will be looking for residents that has a 24-hour card access. People can't get in and out easily. They will look for a gated, safe community where students can live. Residence halls should have, in that case, grocery facilities, ability for students to a cafeteria on campus within the community, everything that a parent walking through your campus would walk away and say, okay, I feel all right. My son or daughter will be okay here. It is healthy and it is safe, even though the city may not be. So at one point, crime rates in places in the US were pretty high, but they didn't lose international students because they worked on a campus security. And what does our campus security look like? And what is our evidence of crime on campus? So one university that I worked at would report crime rates all the time. And in the neighborhood. So they would say, there was a robbery down the street from the university or in the neighborhood. And it really didn't matter because nothing ever happened on campus. But they sort of were shooting themselves in the foot because other universities didn't do that. So understanding what it means and what our record is where I would start. And that's, again, I don't know, we talk, how high the crime rate is. The other option is always to, if the university is thinking strategically about another campus or expansion, think suburbia, where international students may find a little bit more comfort if indeed there is a high crime rate. The second question was, how do I attract exchange students to Brazil? I think.
Yes, not top of the list.
We talk, right, so when we talk, this is a different type of mobility. There's a short-term mobility, which is exchange students, and a long-term mobility, degree seeking. And if I look at Brazil, on the long-term degree seeking, I would imagine that a lot of students would come from the region. I don't know, Colombia, Portuñol is still okay. You can still recruit from Spanish countries to study in Portuguese. And I would imagine you would get students from Portuguese-speaking Africa, unless you're offering programs in English. But if it is exchange, I wouldn't say that Brazil's not popular. Brazil's quite popular. I mean, I should say, let me put it this way. Less than 17% of Americans have a passport and less than 5% go abroad. Same thing for Canadians. So we're, when we talk about our North American, South American region, we're not very mobile up here. Our students don't, it's a big continent. And when they travel abroad, they think that going down south is abroad. So just statistically, it is hard to get students from my part of the world to go anywhere. Europeans are better. They have an Erasmus Mundus program and an Erasmus program, and it works well. But if you are doing exchanges and it's based on reciprocity and the partner institution cannot secure students, generally what I did is I reached out to heritage communities. So I would reach out to, in my case, Brazilian Canadian community at my university to see whether there are students who would be interested in connecting with their roots, Portuguese language, with some English assistance. And I would generally get that reciprocity going that way. I would also advise the home institution as they continue to engage with exchange programs to develop a 15 credit general ed, a content in English. It's not huge, right? It's just 3 or 4 courses that are offered in English, that are Brazilian culture, Brazilian literature, what we call gen eds that we can easily transfer. So I hope that was helpful. I mean, again, longer conversation. We could have this conversation at NAFSA for sure.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I know these are big questions here. For the audience, I mean, you can get in touch with us through our website if you want additional advice on employability in general. Let's go to our next question. We have a question here, I think I'm going to direct at Donald and Menik, and that's on how, how do you succeed in attracting students from low and middle income countries, given the cost of studying abroad? So maybe I could start with you, Donald, and then come to you, Menik.
All right. Thank you, Emmy. One way is, I'll speak about what we do.
Mhm.
We offer scholarships. So we have a scholarship program that we have introduced to help students who are coming from, where the income is low. So scholarship program, we've seen that this has really helped to attract students, brilliant students, and who want to study. So we offer the scholarships, either 100% scholarship, 50%, depending on their circumstances. So we've seen that the scholarship program really helps, and it's one way that from our recent survey that has shown that students, they actually appreciate a lot. Then the other point is on the issue of the university putting in place measures to help these students in terms of processes, let's say visa applications, things to do with accommodation. How do you find accommodation? How do you navigate through the city? So introducing such programs also help students, especially those who cannot afford, for example, to pay agents in obtaining or getting their study permits and all these legal issues that are involved in international students. So I've seen that these two really have helped Cavendish University, and I think can also help other institutions.
Thank you. Thank you, Donald. And Melik, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, sure. Emmy, first of all, when we receive international students, we don't look at them customer. So they are not our customer. And according to the Georgian culture, we call them stumari. Stumari means guest. And is sent by God, so as a gift of God. So with the 3 days, we will take care of the students' term of the. We will, for example, serve lunch free. We will definitely use our accommodation for them for 3 days. If they like to continue to stay in the dormitory, they can, which is $190 month including 3 meal. Other services, internet and other services. So first, as a university, we do offer, we call it Olympiad. For example, for Central Asian students, we send our English test for them. And if they have a high score, we offer them, if they get B, because one of the admission procedure prerequisite for us is a B1 or B2 level of English. And then we do have, we are working with a Pearson education, and we send them questions. So we send them as a specific code, so that every student has a designated code so they can take and then we do have an agency in those countries. They can monitor the questions. They can monitor to exam. So when we take them with B1, B2, we offer them a scholarship, and our tuition fee is relatively low compared to the other region in the world, and high, which is Georgia has a 10.2% inflation today. I mean, it's one of the lowest in Europe after Switzerland. So we work with the students how they can actually pay, not how much they have to pay, but how much they can pay. I mean, according to our tuition fee. And the second one, we also offer them the payment plan. So with the whole year, they can divide their whole payment plan into 4 or 6, and they can pay minimum. The third one, we are offering scholarship to twins. I mean, we had recently a couple of twins, and we are offering them scholarship, even 30%. And that means we offer the brothers and sister relative scholarship. We call it brother and sister scholarship, or sister brother scholarship. And the next one, we also, if they wanted to join to the master degree, from BA to the master degree, here they have also 30% scholarship. So there are many scholarship that we offer. not only, as I said, the scholarship, we also take care of them financially, psychologically. And if, for example, any student don't want to pay, we say, well, you don't have to pay, then you don't have to study. We don't do that. We tell them to write a petition or application to the chancellor so they can work on it. They interview with the students. They wanted to look at his income, and then if not, some students we have been offering campus job, so like an office internship, and they can, there's a both side. I don't want to use this term, but it's in English, killing bird with a stone, killing two birds with one stone. So idea is they can finish their internship, and at the same time they can have maybe allowances for the pocket money. So there are many others on the paper that we offer them, helping them to finish their education in a good way.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that, Melik. Unfortunately, we are up for time. There is a question directed at you, Melik, somebody that would like to get in touch. So what I suggest is to that person, I think, Melik, if you would like to put your contact details in there to establish that connection.
Sure.
But unfortunately, despite, we have more questions, but our time is up. So we're going to have to wrap up. We've learned some good points about how an international student body can improve the employability of your students, what international students are actually looking for, and how different organizations and institutions around the globe are what they're doing to help attract these students, and what you as an institution what steps you can take right now, practical steps to start moving in that direction. So I'd really like to thank our guest speakers, Donald, Melik, and Delila. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your knowledge and experience. And thank you everyone on the line, to the audience. I hope you have some good ideas now on how to move forward on attracting international students. And if you have any questions about the IFC Vitae program and how we might help your institution on employability outcomes, please don't hesitate to contact us. Our website is in the emails that we sent out, and it will be in the email we send out after this webinar. So looking forward to seeing you all at our next webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Amy.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Emily.
Bye. Bye.